Welcome to SportsBeat KC, the sports podcast of the Kansas City Star and KCUR. It's Tuesday, August 4th, and I'm Blair Kerkhoff. The Chiefs continue their stay at training camp at Missouri Western in St. Joseph, and they've put the pads on. That makes it easier for coaches to evaluate the team, and it makes it easier for us to talk about it. On today's show, beat writer Pete Sweeney and Star columnists Sam McDowell and Vahe Gregorian share their breakdown of Chiefs camp, what they've seen, what they like and don't like so far. Later in the show, I'll let you know what's on my radar in Kansas City sports this week. Hello, Pete.
Hello. How are you?
I'm good. Sam, how you doing?
I'm doing great.
Vahe.
Blair, howdy.
Good to see you again.
Great to see you.
I think it's been since before the World Cup that all of us have been together to discuss Chiefs. Am I right about that? It's got to be right.
I think so. I don't think we had any emergency podcasts.
I went into World Cup hibernation, so I certainly wasn't on the podcast.
But you were able to pinch hit in a big way last week. I really appreciate that.
Yeah. Welcome back.
Yeah, it was good to be back.
Great to have you back.
I say it's great to be back because we sit here in the student union at Missouri Western State University, and if you could maybe hear a little background noise, it's Chiefs players having lunch in the student union. So there you go.
You
didn't get that in Nova Scotia, I bet, Blair.
I bet you didn't. And listen, it's a great effort to take the fans behind the scenes.
Right. Yeah. Natural noise, they call this.
Yeah. It's also air conditioning you might hear too, which is absolutely required at Chiefs camp. So to me, there are certain milestone days in Chiefs camp. There's a day that the quarterbacks and rookies arrive along with the coaches. There's the first full squad arrival, and then there is the first day in pads, and that's what happened today at Missouri Western. Anything stand out, Pete, about the first day in pads?
Well, I just think it's when you can truly start evaluating. Like even last week where Cyrus Allen, from our reports up here, was setting the city on fire, so to speak. He has to prove it in pads. Now, he didn't get the opportunity to do so, as he has that bone bruise, as Sam reported, and we relayed at the Star. But it doesn't matter really what you did during rookie camp or the off season until you're able to do it at practice in these padded practices, and then hopefully that translates to the preseason. That's when you can really determine some things.
Yeah, it's the time where you're most looking forward to watching the rookies because of what Pete said. Like, your only evaluation of them so far in the NFL is without pads. And, Pete and I were here for the rookie days too. And, I think the guy we're really eager to see in pads is Mansour Delane because he hasn't had a terrific camp in the first week. And then the guys and of course, Cyrus Allen was terrific, and then you don't get to see him. So I think those were probably at the top of our list. Didn't get to see them in pads today. Mansour Delane is still in the yellow non-contact jerseys, so he's cycling out of the contact 11 on 11. But what stood out to me is the guys in pads with the rookies. I thought Peter Woods was terrific today. He cooked Trey Smith on a one-on-one drill. Trey Smith got the best of him on the next one. And then just torched Hunter Norzad on back-to-back plays with different moves. And Pete, I've been impressed periodically with R. Mason Thomas. Looks like he's got some potential juice. Day one of pads, but those will be some guys that we keep our eye on for the duration of these padded practices.
This is Peter Woods, who might have been a top 5 pick. And he come out a year earlier. Instead, was at the end of the first round. So good sign for the Chiefs if he becomes the player at a position of need for them too, right?
I was thinking, like, if you're the Chiefs and thinking who would you like to see have like a great camp, Peter Woods has got to be pretty high up on your list. I actually think number 1 on your list is Josh Simmons, who's been great up here. I mean, he's really in great shape, and obviously, he's trimmed some weight to where we wanted over the summer when we saw him come to that press conference. If you guys remember, had he trimmed too much weight? But he is stonewalling guys in the one-on-one drill, including R. Mason Thomas had good reps against the twos and just got stonewalled by Josh Simmons in the one-on-one O-line, D-line drills. But the Chiefs have to get better up front. on both sides of the ball. So those guys are all on the list.
I like that thought, though. If somebody has to emerge from camp among the rookies, let's just say the draft class, if someone really needs to emerge from the Chiefs, who could it be or who should it be?
Well, I guess it's sort of a funny response right now, right? Because we got a suspended animation on Cyrus Allen. But, I mean, given what their situation has been at receiver and presuming he's going to be back within a couple of days, that this is a real day-to-day, not a Eric Berry day-to-day, I think, I mean, he's really energized the offense and sort of has fit a couple different ways that gave them a dimension that we hadn't seen before we saw him in pads. And to your points earlier, I mean, Andy Reid brought up several different times the other day that he brought it up in the context of Cyrus. He brought it up in the context of Benson, like, let's see what happens in pads, right? But they do need somebody to step up among the receivers.
I think Woods and Allen are fine answers. The Chiefs need Mansour Delane to be legitimate and good and maybe one of the better players that were drafted, period. I mean, you traded up 3 picks. You surrendered a third and a fifth to do so. That means in football terms, like, okay, this is a no-doubt slam dunk. He has not been that. Now, the Chiefs are saying right now that maybe some of the struggles that he's had early on in camp have to do with the shoulder injury. They're being really careful about that. He did not, as Sam was mentioning, partake in the live periods today. But during the rookie camp, he didn't look great. I think he's since then looked fine at best, but they need him to be a lockdown corner almost since week 1. Of course, you're a young player, you're going to have your lumps, but when you take a player that high, the highest pick, right, since Mahomes, he has to be that guy. And so far, so bad. Doesn't mean that things can't change.
Yeah, I mean, it's we were talking about this, Pete, I think you and me, or maybe with some Vahe. I mean, it's interesting because I think the entire draft class has looked like a really good class, except for Mansour Delane. Looks like he's had a slow start. And how would the draft class be viewed? Well, this draft class is going to be graded on how Mansour Delane turns out because he's taken 6th overall. As Pete mentioned, you traded extra capital because you were so sure of the player. And let's face it, I mean, the Chiefs told us this was their biggest need. When you make that kind of move to get this position, and, you know, I mean, you bring L'Jarius Sneed back, who did not have a robust market because of the injury situations he's had in his last year in Kansas City and the 2 subsequent in Tennessee, and he hasn't participated in team contract drills. He's only done the drills against air, which means your room outside of Mansour Delane is pretty thin. They're right about that on draft night, thinking they needed a cornerback, but I think he's got to work out for this draft class to be graded positively.
You guys have seen more days than I did, especially obviously the rookie time when I wasn't here. But how much do you accept the notion that it's like he's been playing with one arm behind him, the way Andy Reid put it the other day? And does that explain a lot, or is it closer to an excuse than a reason?
Well, I think the best excuse that he could have is that he's looked gassed to us in the first couple of days, and receivers are rotating in and out, and he's not. I mean, he's taken every drill, and I thought he looked like he was sucking wind. And so that is a legitimate excuse that could improve most easily, I think, over the course of training camp.
Yeah, and playing into that theory, we don't know how much the shoulder impacted his ability to even run leading up to the camp. So, no, he could get his wind under him, and you could start to feel better. On the positive side, because I think we peppered him a little bit here, he couldn't do team drills today, but I thought it was noticeable that he kept running on the field to get in the huddle so he could hear the play calls and really wanted to be a part of that. I mean, I think he's trying to take as many mental reps as he can. He probably is very disappointed that he's not a full go right now. And so I think this can improve. But again, I mean, we just have to relay what we've seen so far, which is, just not been great.
I like that thought, Sam, that when you draft as high as the Chiefs did and take Delane, your draft class is pretty much judged by the success. And you mentioned the Patrick Mahomes draft. Anybody else remember who was in that draft? It turns out to be the greatest draft class of all time for the Chiefs because of one player. Yeah. Anybody else remember who else was in the 2017 Chiefs draft?
I don't think there's many left.
No, I'll give him to you. The 2nd round pick was Tano Passanio. 3rd round pick was Kareem Hunt. The They get mileage out of Kareem. Jehu Chasen, Ukemi Eligwe, and Leon McClay rounded out the 2017 draft.
That's just a tremendous draft class if I've ever heard one.
as good as it gets.
Got a Hall of Fame quarterback. That's all you need.
2-time MVP, 3-time Super Bowl MVP out of that draft class. Tremendous. So let's go back to Cyrus Allen for a second. Speaking of Hall of Fame players, at least that was the impression I've gotten in hearing the reaction to the Cyrus Allen injury. He bruised a shin bone, as it turns out, in practice. Was it Friday or Saturday? Saturday. And during a special teams drill, he was returning a punt, and
No, he was the gunner on it.
oh, the gunner. But he collided with Elam.
It was also a gunner. So it's a pooch punt drill. So where the returner, which I think was Remigio, gets out of the way, other two guys are trying to prevent the ball from going into the end zone and just looking upward to field the punt and don't have spatial awareness that the other guy's hovering at.
So the shins collide, and Cyrus, it looked pretty bad for a little bit. Take us through that moment there.
Yeah, I mean, Cyrus Allen was down on the ground for a solid 5 minutes, which must have seemed like an hour to us. And, then he needed to use coaches as crutches just to get to the cart. The cart took him to the injury tent here at camp that we can all see, where they looked at him for 5-10 minutes. And then he took the cart up the hill and out of practice. And I was standing over there for that, and he's literally shaking his head back and forth and then uses the front of his jersey to cover his face. And that more than you actually see, because the injury was a contact injury. It was not a non-contact thing to where you thought, and I mean, Pete, I think I even told you, best case scenarios, he's got a bone bruise. But, worst case scenarios is something broken here, and just seeing him up that cart, I mean, it makes you fear the worst. It looked like he was fearing the worst for certain. He definitely in that time did not think, I've got a bone bruise, I'm going to miss a couple of days.
It's terrible timing because he had very clearly become someone Patrick Mahomes was seeking when he was on the field. He actually, and this is legit numbers, this isn't us like boosting him in any capacity. I mean, he was the favorite target of early training camp for Patrick Mahomes. Now you factor in Rashee Rice isn't on the field, right? You're probably limiting Travis Kelce, but I mean, I think that does say something. And so in that sense, I think it's terrible timing. In the sense of good timing, you're early enough in training camp where you would think that he should be as close to a full go as possible, when you do get to week one.
One of the things that just hit me was that last week, 2 different times we asked Andy Reid about Allen before he got hurt. And each time Andy immediately brought up the notion of Mahomes already trusting him, which, that's a little bit of, gold dust on that, right? To be able to say like, okay, he gets it. Patrick gets him. So, promising, I think, when he picks it back up, but obviously we've seen some one-hit wonders in camp, or one-hit wonders is the wrong way to put it, but we've seen some guys that are camp stars that doesn't translate to the regular season.
And because of that, I'm not putting him above Tyquan Thornton or Xavier, but to me, he's already past Jalen Royals. I mean, you can just see that that's going to be the case. I mean, it does need to translate, as we've said, to pads in the preseason, but you can just tell that Mahomes actually believes in Allen more so than he does Royals. And, there are some reps with Royals where you see why drop passes, maybe miscommunication, that type of thing.
It's interesting to me with Cyrus because, to Vahe's point, I mean, the amount of guys we could count who have had terrific training camps, especially before the pads come on, who just get all the buzz. I mean, you think back to like Jody Fortson last year, Robert Tonyan, who winds up with 1 yard during the regular season, healthy regular season. I mean, Nico Remigio has certainly been a darling up here before and hasn't factored in I remember Jerice Fountain.
Sky Moore,
Justin Ross. I mean, there's been guys. Cyrus Allen is different for a couple of reasons for me. One, he gets open really frequently. And 2, even when he's not, Patrick Mahomes is still seeking it out. He's testing it to see what he can get away with a receiver because he thinks he's going to use him. And I think the spot where they could use him most is the Chiefs were horrible against man-to-man coverage last year. The receivers didn't get open. Patrick Mahomes was 30th out of 38 qualifying quarterbacks in EPA against man-to-man. Cyrus Allen was great against man-to-man in college. And it's because he's so quick off the line. And I put this in a column the day before he got hurt, but first round, he was better in man-to-man on yards per route run than first-round picks Jordan Tyson and Mekhi Lemon, who were against man-to-man. Like, that's where you could see the vision of why he seems to be a favorite target, like Pete said, because a lot of teams are playing zone now. The Chiefs don't. They play a lot of man-to-man, so the Chiefs see a ton of man-to-man in training camp out here.
Okay, let's take a break here. I want to pick up on Cyrus Allen when we come back. We're back on SportsBeat KC, the sports podcast of the Kansas City Star and KCUR, with Chiefs beat writer Pete Sweeney and Star columnists Sam McDowell and Vahe Gregorian. And Pete, you projected a 53-man roster recently, and it's after about a week's worth of observation in camp, before pads. But among your calls was you elevated Cyrus Allen up to basically make him the fourth receiver. Were there any other kind of moves like that stood out and based on your viewing of practice so far?
Yeah, I mean, I think Allen deserved that. I sort of described why I feel like he should be above Royals already. I mean, you could just tell that Mahomes has more trust in him than Royals. Even in, a couple of these practices, I added Trey Watson to the tight end room. I think ideally the Chiefs want to have 4 tight ends if they feel like the talent is there. So I borrowed someone from the defense, Cole Christensen, who I believe they could still get back on the practice squad if they wanted to go in that direction, which they have before. I also added Khalil Benson to the starting rotation. I mean, we've just seen him get more opportunity early on here than Jalen Moore. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Everything the Chiefs have shown us since Moore was signed makes you believe that they see him as a swing tackle more than a starter. And so if they feel like a guy has more upside, they're going to give him more opportunity. In his very first padded practice, they shared the role. You saw Benson first in the initial period. Jalen Moore got a period. And then it was Benson first again toward the end. And so Chiefs are eyeing him. They're going to give him an opportunity. He's got to go prove it now. As Samuel mentioned, a little shakier than maybe you would have liked to see in one-on-ones. But again, it is early for an undrafted rookie at Indiana.
Yeah, what did you see, Sam?
Yeah, I mean, I think the right tackle battle is real. And I thought going into camp that there were 2 possibilities. Either there actually is a right tackle battle or you're just trying to give Jalen Moore a kick in the pants, basically. And Jalen Moore got the first crack at it ever since it seems like it's been Khalil Benson. I thought today was one of his worst days, Benson's, but that's going to happen for a rookie. Trey Smith, we all talked to after practice, and I thought he had really good perspective because if you remember, Trey Smith got the first snap of camp as a rookie, and he didn't know he was going to get the first snap of camp as a rookie until right before they called out the play. And the
6th rounder, too.
6th rounder. Yeah. And he said Trey Smith's Creed free and mentioned that those guys were going to be starting from day one. And it was interesting to hear that Trey Smith said he struggled during camp. He called it a nightmare. At one point, like, Khalil Benson's going to have some bad days. Do the Chiefs stick with him when he struggles? And today was the day he struggled. Is he still going to be in the rotation on Tuesday morning?
It was funny, Sam, specifically, you took him back to the nightmare when you asked him the question, taking me back to a nightmare. But he said trial by fire, right? And look, there's a reason for that. You want to see what these guys have when it's in the crucible.
What's become of Esapole? Is he still a factor? Not as a starter, I guess, but
second team.
Back up to
I think
to Simmons.
I think you keep 4 tackles, right? I mean, Moore and Esapole have switched left and right tackle with the second team. So
I think Holley went from roster hopeful. Remember, he was cut last year to solidified on the roster backup option at tackle. But he is not. We thought maybe coming in he'd be part of this battle. He has not. He has not been.
All right. Okay. So early last week, I found myself in an airport in a restaurant, and the TVs are on, and it's a sport-themed restaurant. So, but this wasn't sports. It was the evening news, and all of a sudden, Eric Bieniemy's face is on the screen. Now, I'd known what happened. I'd read about it earlier in the day. I wasn't here in St. Joe when the news broke, but to see Eric Bieniemy on CBS Evening News and Andy Reid's response on the at the press conference that day was a bit jarring, and everybody kind of stopped what they were doing to look and see why you'd have those guys on the TV screen, and and this was not a Kansas City airport. So Vahe, was seemed a little quieter at practice today, and I'm sure Pete and Sam will tell us it's been quieter this week.
Yeah, and Sam, wrote a whole piece with that premise that you can't. It's conspicuous by his absence, and this is sort of the time that this is supposed to be sort of go time with him and for him with what they hope to get out of him and what they hope to do with the offense. Now, obviously, that's all quite secondary to what's going on in his life, but it doesn't mean that it's not, real here. So I from what we can tell anyway, you guys might know better or more, but it seems that we're still some time away from even knowing what to project about his return.
Yeah, I think it became pretty clear that it was going to be weeks, not days, and understandably so. I mean, none of us are sitting here thinking like, "Where's Eric Bieniemy?" But you do. I think we got so used to that being the soundtrack of training camp that once it was gone, his voice being gone, that you were like, "It's kind of quiet out here at camp." And so now, over the summer and the first couple of days of rookie camp, it was like, okay, he's back, and this energy at practice is different because of it. And with him gone, I think you feel his absence because, I mean, from the football perspective, the reason you brought him back was now. You're trying to reestablish like this identity of paying closer attention to the details and every little thing mattering, and like he's the guy who accentuates that stuff. I mean, he's the guy who highlights that stuff after plays, and like I said, the soundtrack of practice, and it's supposed to be like, you didn't bring Eric Bieniemy back to draw up the plays on the whiteboard, and that's the stuff you need in the regular season. The time you needed his personality is now.
And just a quick note, Joe Blindmeyer, the pass game coordinator, has taken the role of Eric Bieniemy, where he's calling the plays into the helmet of the quarterback. Andy Reid's calling the plays, to be clear, but Joe Blindmeyer is relaying them. And he'll actually speak to the media next, where it would have been Eric Bieniemy. And so that just goes to further show, and as Sam said, we all agree with it, but there is no timetable for Bieniemy to return. I mean, if they're putting Blindmeyer at the podium, he's the interim offensive coordinator for now.
Just related to that, I really wonder what you guys would say to this. Naturally, Joe's very capable and bright and up and coming guy, and but his demeanor is different than Eric's, and while he's capably, no doubt, doing this aspect of the job, have you sensed that the Chiefs have felt they need to do something to kind of prime the pump for more vocal stuff on the field during this time, or not really? They just sort of think it comes about naturally as the rhythm of camp.
I think there's been a few moments in the days that Eric hasn't been here where we saw Andy Reid get a little bit more angry than he has as far as mistakes being made, because someone has to do it. You mentioned Blindmeyer. I think you're right. He's up and coming, but certainly on the quieter side. And I think a minor part of it is Bieniemy was back for the volume. I mean, Andy Reid's getting a little bit older. I don't think he wants to be the one yelling at guys, right? And so they're certainly missing that aspect.
Yeah, I mean, Chad O'Shea's been a very vocal coach as well. Now, he does it from the sideline. The OC stands behind the offense, although Blameyer's still been calling plays from the sideline. Just to be clear, I mean, Blameyer should be an offensive coordinator already in this league. I mean, super bright guy. I mean, you could hear that when he talks at the podium, just talking to other people in the Chiefs organization. You'll hear just how big of an imprint he has on the offense. And I know for whatever reason he was taking some heat. His title's the passing game coordinator. A year ago, their passing game wasn't great. I still think so much of that is you've got to get the run game going to have an avenue to pass for football. And, I mean, he is capable of doing this job. And that's why I say now's the time where you wanted Eric Bieniemy's presence. And not that you didn't want it during the season. It's important always. But, I mean, they're really missing him out here. And obviously it's not the most important thing on his mind. It shouldn't be. But practice goes on. The season goes on. It's kind of cool nature of it. And it's been very obvious he's not here.
But when I think about the position groups on offense, I think the wide receivers are in good shape coaching-wise, as you say, because of Chad O'Shea, upgraded, as a position coach there. The offensive line and the tight ends, same coaches, and I think there's a lot of hope being pinned to the interior of the offensive line, especially. And but I think about the running backs, and I always think Eric Bieniemy would have a solid impact on the running back room Do you think the fact that it's almost an entirely new running back room helps in this regard?
Yeah, I mean, you have DeMarco Murray too, who's a new coach.
Yeah, DeMarco Murray, but new to
Right.
the NFL, sure.
Yeah,
Coaching, NFL coacher.
I think when you bring in the reigning Super Bowl MVP, it's how much coaching is he really going to need. I mean, I think he's polished already, which is why he got the contract he did. And then behind him, you have Amari DiMercato. Brashard Smith is back. Been a slight surprise that Brashard Smith has been taking the second touch after Walker pretty consistently before DiMercato. And so, maybe we were thinking, Smith might be on the outside looking in. I think that's an interesting part of the back end of the room is that Smith is getting his opportunity as well.
Okay, guys, great conversation as always. Thanks so much. We'll do it again soon.
Sounds good.
Here's what's on my radar in Kansas City sports. The Major League Baseball trade deadline has come and gone, and the Royals made a few deals, but maybe not the ones we expected. There had been plenty of speculation that starting pitchers Michael Wacha and Seth Lugo would be dealt, but General Manager J.J. Piccolo emphasized that both are part of the plan for the 2027 season. The Royals did make a few moves, notably sending starting pitcher Kris Bubic to the Los Angeles Dodgers. Bubic has dealt with several injuries since he was part of the 2018 Royals draft. In return, the Royals got right-handed pitcher Carlos Duran, and we'll likely see him in the bullpen by the end of the season. The Royals also sent outfielder Lane Thomas and relief pitcher Bailey Falter to the Atlanta Braves for a pair of pitching prospects. And there's big news involving college sports. The Big Ten and the SEC, the biggest and most influential conferences, have signed on with federal lawmakers over legislation to regulate college sports. It's called the College Sports Act, a bipartisan measure to bring some clarity and continuity to college sports issues. The big ticket items would be to raise spending for athletes to about $49 million per school and change the transfer rule, limiting it to one transfer without an eligibility penalty. The legislation still has to clear some procedural hurdles. Okay, that'll do it for this week. Thanks to our SportsBeat KC producers, Gabriella Lacey and Suzanne Hogan, and to our editors, Hannah Wise, Jeff Rosen, and Scott Chasen. And a big thanks to you for listening. Let us know what you thought of the show with a rating or review, and we'll be back soon with another SportsBeat KC, where we talk sports in Kansas City.